Hi, welcome to the Inlay. I'm DM Bigfoot, and today I'd like to show you a very special game that not only takes you to the stars, but makes you their master. A game where the whole of a space empire is at your command. Will you be a ruthless warmonger, controlling the galaxy with military might? Or will you be the center of galactic trade? What game am I talking about? Only the inaugural Kickstarter success from Tasty Minstrel Games, Eminent Domain. So, sit down, come a little bit closer, and let me take you inside the box, where you will find a suspiciously thin board, some very cool looking spaceship tokens, some circle and star tokens, and boatloads of cards. Now the box doesn't really have an inlay to speak of here, but with the game being mostly cards, it doesn't really need one. Not that it couldn't benefit from one. Eminent Domain is a deck building game, like our friend Tanto Kure here, but this game is just so incredibly different, and not just because of the theme. Most deck building games, like Tanto Kure, follow the model set by Dominion, the granddaddy of all deck building games. But this game is just so fresh, so nuanced, so... Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Let's talk about the game. Each player starts with an identical deck of cards. On your turn, you'll draw 5 cards, and each player's turn is split into 3 phases. The first phase is an action phase, where a player can take one of those cards and discard it for some small action. Now this action phase is completely optional, in case for your strategy you don't want to get rid of any of your cards, or you just don't want to take an action phase for whatever reason. Next is the roll phase. Now during this phase, a player will select one of the 5 roll cards to add to his deck and do its special effect, which they can then boost with cards of the same type from their hand. Now this game gets really interesting in that every other player at the table then has an opportunity to follow your roll if they want to. But I'll get more into that a little bit later. Last is the cleanup phase, where you can discard as many of the remaining cards in your hand as you want, and then draw back up to 5 cards. And, like your standard deck builder, when your deck runs out, you shuffle your discards into your new deck, including the new cards you just got. And the game ends when 1 or 2 of the stacks of roll cards is depleted, depending on the number of players. You see? Simple. There's even a turn reference sheet on these little cards here. Cute. And it's in that simplicity that this game shines. Unlike the cluttered marketplace you'll find in most deck builders, here there's only 5 cards to choose from. That's madness, you say. That'll never work, you cry. But no, it's not madness. It's brilliance. This game slims down the deck building concept into pure elegance. It's the equivalent of putting the genre in a perfectly fit little black dress and letting it show off its sexy self. Anyways, these 5 cards are capable of endless combination. Come here, let me show you what they do. Now the first of these roll cards is Survey. The special action that Survey gives you before your turn really begins is to draw 2 cards. The role that Survey has is possibly one of the most important in the game, because Survey cards get you planets. Now this game is won by the person who has the most victory points when the game is over, and planets will be the main source of those victory points. Now, you start off with 1 planet, and when you need more, you need to survey. Now, you collect a number of cards from the planet deck equal to the number of survey cards you have. That is, the survey card you picked up from the stack if it's your turn, plus any survey cards you boosted with from your hand. In this case, 3. You will then pick one of these cards to add to your empire. If you are following the survey roll, if it's not your turn, you can do the same thing, except you pick up a number of cards from the stack equal to the amount of surveys you have, minus 1. But once they're here in front of you, they're not technically part of your empire yet. They're just surveyed, you just know about them. One of the ways to add them to your empire is through warfare. Now, warfare allows you to pick up a number of these ships equal to the number of warfare cards you have. If you are following, this is what you can do as well. But if you're leading the roll, that is, if you're the one that chose the card, then you can instead use your roll and discard a number of ships equal to the ship number on the back of the card and conquer that planet, adding it to your empire. You can also do this as your action before your turn begins, provided you have the number of ships that you need to conquer it already. But what if you don't want to take it by force? Well, you can colonize. Colonize allows you to take as many colonized cards as you want and then place them underneath the planet cards you want to take. And once you have the number of colonies it asks for, you can use your roll or your action to flip it and add it to your empire peacefully. But once you have these cards, what are you going to do with them? Well, you can produce and trade. This card actually has two rolls with it. The produce roll allows you to produce a number of resources equal to the amount of cards you have, and then place them in empty spots on your planets. The trade roll allows you to trade away these resources for victory point tokens. And if you are just doing the action for this card, you can produce or trade just one resource. Now, the interesting thing about these victory point tokens here is that there's only a limited number of them in the supply. If the supply ever runs out, the game is over early, leading to an interesting strategy of people trying to empty the supply before anyone else has really had a chance to finish their own strategies. Now, the last card here is research. And before I get into that, let's everyone take a breath. Alright, research allows you to grab these technology cards. Now, technology cards will usually go into your deck and are, for the most part, souped up versions of the actions you'll find on the main cards. For instance, improved production allows you to produce 2 resources, and improved survey here allows you to draw 3 cards. Now, the technology cards also have these. These symbols mean that you can use this card when boosting your own roll or when following an opponent's roll. Not only that, but there are some high-level technology cards that do not go into your deck. These are permanent cards and give you some lasting effect. For instance, this productivity card here allows you to perform 2 actions for each turn. Sorry about that. I know this game can be a little bit much sometimes. If I had to levy one complaint about this game, is that it's a little bit complicated. And you know what? No, it's not complicated. This game is not for beginners. The strategies involved are sometimes a little bit much, but this game is capable of such endless possibilities. There's so many strategies that you can put here, and none of them are the right one to choose. Because you could be that space dictator if you want, just conquering planets. You just fill your deck with survey cards to get planets and then warfare cards to conquering them, ignoring all the rest, just getting planet after planet after planet. And that could work. Or you could focus on all research, just getting enough planets to justify that research, because the later research cards, the more advanced ones, are actually worth victory points themselves. And at the same time, you don't want any of your strategies to be too rigid, because you want to be able to follow all the other players around the table. You want to be able to take advantage of what they're doing. And at the same time, you don't want them taking advantage of you. You don't want them taking anything from you. You don't want them to have an edge. And wow, I can talk about this game a lot. I can go on, but let me just say this. Eminent Domain is absolutely my favorite deck building game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, because it's just so rich. The depth of strategy and simplicity that you can find in this game is nothing short of miraculous. And I definitely recommend this game for any gamer's library. So go out and buy it right now. And if you do buy it and fall in love with it, like I know that you will, then you are going to be happy to hear this next news, because there is an expansion, Eminent Domain Escalation, that has been recently successfully funded on Kickstarter, and it should be coming sometime before the end of this year. And there's another expansion, Eminent Domain Exotica, set to be released sometime next year. I, for one, am excited to play both. And maybe someday, you and I can play together and build mighty space empires. But know this to be true. My empire will be mightier. I hope. Thank you so much for watching the Inlay. Want to see more from the Inlay? Maybe a few more video reviews? Well, I've got some. I reviewed this game. And this game. And this game, for whatever reason. And if you'd like to see those reviews, plus written reviews, you can check them out at istcomics.com/theinlay. While you're there, you can check out Generation, a webcomic that makes accidental pregnancy even more awkward by adding in superheroes. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time.